So if you drop a pin on a map in, say, a snowy, silent village in Vermont,
Okay, setting the scene.
right, just totally quiet, and then you drop another pin right in the middle of the, hyperkinetic, neon-drenched grid of Manhattan.
Oh, wow. Yeah, two totally different planets.
Exactly. I mean, it is almost impossible to believe that both of those places fly the exact same flag.
It really is.
But today, we are diving deep into the cultural mosaic of the United States. And we're doing it using a really fascinating stack of sources that, well, they take a completely unique approach.
Yeah, they do. It's not your standard history textbook.
No, not at all. They don't just give us a dry historical analysis. Instead, they decode the American identity through a very specific linguistic lens.
Right, which is so cool.
It is. It's this collection of heavy-hitting adjectives built around prefixes like in and un. So we're talking words like insurmountable, unfathomable, that kind of thing.
It's an incredibly revealing framework, honestly, because, when you think about words that start with in or un, you're inherently talking about limits.
Yep.
You're talking about extremes and the breaking of boundaries. And that is really the only way to genuinely understand this country.
Because it's just so full of extremes.
Exactly. You have to navigate a mountain of contradictions that are, as our sources describe, insurmountable. You can't just climb over the friction or pretend these massive cultural divides don't exist.
Yeah, you can't ignore them.
You actually have to walk right through them because that very friction is the engine of the American psyche.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if we start with the physical canvas where all this friction plays out, I mean, the sheer geographic diversity is unfathomable.
Totally unfathomable.
It's so vast that no single person could possibly wrap their head around the entire lived experience of the country. And that scale, it practically guarantees that you are going to have these wildly divergent realities existing simultaneously.
Yeah, and the sources highlight this by drawing that exact contrast you mentioned at the start.
The Vermont and Manhattan thing.
Right. In a place like rural Vermont, life is deeply unostentatious. It's modest, unshowy, anchored in this really slow rhythm and intensely local.
Yeah.
But then, literally a short flight away, you are thrown into the incessant, nonstop machinery of Manhattan.
Right, which is just relentless.
Completely. It's an environment that is loud, vertical, and absolutely incessant.
It's like watching a split-screen movie where two totally conflicting genres are playing at the exact same time.
That's a great way to put it.
Like on the left, you've got a slow-burn indie drama in the woods. And on the right, it's a cyberpunk action thriller.
Yeah.
And we are expected to believe this is the same movie. How do these completely incompatible environments not just constantly collide and tear the national identity to shreds?
Well, they do collide sometimes.
True, but they feel like they should be at war with each other 24/7, yet they are inextricably linked in the global imagination of what America is.
What's fascinating here is the sheer mechanics of the geography itself. Like, the physical space is the secret ingredient.
The space itself.
Yeah. That unfathomable scale acts as a massive buffer zone. Think about it. If you tried to compress that quiet Vermont town and that Manhattan financial district into a space the size of, say, a small European country.
Oh, wow. It would be chaos.
Exactly. The friction might actually tear the society apart.
Yeah.
But the thousands of miles of plains, mountains, and highways, they kind of absorb the shock.
So it's literally a physical buffer.
Right. The space provides the necessary breathing room for these opposing lifestyles to survive without suffocating one another.
Okay, so the landscape itself is the shock absorber. But that scale isn't just a geographical accident, right?
No, not at all.
Because when we look at the human-made geography, this massive towering scale was forged by an era of industrial ambition that was, frankly, unprecedented.
Oh, totally unprecedented.
And we're talking about a level of expansion the world had literally never seen before.
And you feel that most intensely when you look at the historical monuments from that era. Like, think about the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The massive concrete canyons of Chicago's early skyscrapers. Or the Statue of Liberty towering over New York Harbor.
Right. Put yourself in the shoes of an early immigrant for a second. Imagine making that grueling ocean crossing from a tiny horizontal farming village somewhere.
Oh man, it must have been wild.
And suddenly you're sailing into a harbor where the buildings literally seem to touch the clouds. Our sources describe that visual shock as an ineffable emotional experience.
Ineffable, meaning beyond words.
Exactly. It was an emotion so extreme it defied language. These colossal structures stood as unassailable symbols of a new reality. They were completely unyielding pillars of opportunity that would have been entirely inconceivable in the countries those immigrants left behind.
Yeah, inconceivable.
But I do have to push back on the romance of this narrative a bit.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because the whole shining city welcoming the tired masses thing is a great story, but wasn't this really just a massive architectural flex of capital?
I mean, yes.
Like, it's a young, booming nation using steel and concrete to intimidate the rest of the world and show off its new wealth, right?
Well, it was absolutely a flex of capital, there's no denying that. But the brilliance of the American experiment is how it synthesized that raw capitalist power with a psychological promise.
What do you mean by a psychological promise?
So yes, the concrete canyons were monuments to wealth, but they also served as tangible proof of a core national ideal.
Yeah.
And that ideal was massive, towering, individual reinvention.
Ah, okay.
The architecture communicated something profoundly radical to the immigrant. It basically said, you are no longer bound by the gravity of your ancestry or the class system of your homeland.
Right.
You can build your own life as high as we build these skyscrapers.
Wow. So the skyline was essentially a giant billboard for the American dream.
Exactly.
It marketed the idea that your personal ambition was the only limit. And, here's where it gets really interesting. That fierce commitment to individual reinvention didn't just stay confined to those towering urban centers. It totally seeped into the groundwater. It completely shaped the daily physical infrastructure of the individual citizen.
Oh, absolutely.
Which brings us to the great American suburb.
Right. Because the concept of individualism isn't just a philosophical idea there. It is an inherent, baked-in feature of their physical reality.
Yeah, it's literally caved into the ground.
Exactly. Because of the sprawling landscapes we discussed, combined with a very intentional historical shift away from robust public transit, the culture developed an entirely new way of living.
And in that sprawling suburban environment, the personal automobile becomes completely indispensable.
Completely indispensable. You literally cannot survive without it.
Think about your own daily routine if you live in one of these areas. In an American suburb, a car isn't a luxury, and it's not even really just a vehicle.
What is it then?
It functions more like a necessary personal exoskeleton.
I love that analogy.
Right, you have to strap on a 2-ton metal suit just to participate in society, just to get groceries, commute to work, or drop your kids at school. I mean, the physical environment is actively hostile to a pedestrian.
That exoskeleton analogy perfectly captures the mechanism at play. In the U.S., geographic mobility is synonymous with personal independence.
Yeah.
The entire design of the suburban sprawl is driven by an unrelenting pursuit of space and autonomy. The cultural mandate is super clear.
Which is what?
You must have your own detached house, your own private yard, and your own personal machine to travel between your private destinations.
Right, it's all about my own.
But this raises an important question for you to consider. What actually happens to the psychology of the society when the ultimate symbol of individual freedom, the car, mutates into an absolute daily requirement just to survive?
Well, you end up trapped in your own freedom. You are physically isolated inside that metal suit, which inevitably breeds psychological and social isolation.
Which is perhaps the most profound paradox of the American lifestyle.
Yeah, the isolation paradox.
The intense, almost militant focus on self-reliance unwittingly fosters a pervasive loneliness. By designing a society where you never have to rely on your neighbor for a ride to the market or share a train car with a stranger, you accidentally build invisible walls around every individual.
And this brings up an unbelievable contradiction in the source material.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
Right, because if you travel to the U.S., you know Americans are globally famous for being incredibly friendly.
So friendly.
The sources call this initial hospitality inimitable. It is so unique, so effortless, that it's nearly impossible for other cultures to replicate.
Yeah, it really is.
You can walk into a diner in Texas or a coffee shop in Ohio, and literally within 30 seconds, a total stranger will be treating you like an old friend, asking about your day, complimenting your shoes, whatever.
The warmth is very real, but it operates on a specific frequency.
What do you mean?
Well, visitors and immigrants frequently hit a wall. They experience that incredible, inimitable surface friendliness, but then they find that breaking through to a deeper collective community bond is highly elusive.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, you might exchange pleasantries with the person living next door for a decade and never once be invited inside their home.
Wow. So what does this all mean? Is this just a flaw in the culture, or is it like an undeniable byproduct of their economic system?
That's the million-dollar question.
Because the sources point out that competitive capitalism demands an unflinching commitment to your career. You cannot hesitate. You cannot take your eye off the ball.
It is entirely a byproduct of the economic engine. If we break down the social mechanics, that surface-level friendliness isn't fake. It's actually a highly evolved survival tool.
A survival tool. How so?
It acts as the necessary social lubricant for a transient workforce. Think about it. If the economic system requires you to move across the country for a promotion every 4 years, you cannot afford to take 2 years to slowly build trust in a new town.
Right, that takes way too long.
Exactly. You need to be able to make pleasant, functional connections instantly.
That makes so much sense. You have to be able to plug and play into a new neighborhood instantly.
Yes, plug and play.
But to build deep roots, the kind where your neighbor helps raise your kids or takes care of you when you're sick, that requires time.
Yeah, it does.
And time is the one currency that an unflinching 60-hour-a-week career focus simply won't let you spend. Deep community basically becomes a liability in a hypermobile economy.
Exactly. The friendliness is an adaptation to the mobility. And the fascinating twist here is that this very same restless, transient drive, the exact energy that makes them sacrifice deep community roots, is also the engine that fuels their massive, world-changing innovation.
Right, because you can't have one without the other. This brings us to America's unquenchable thirst for reinvention.
Unquenchable is the perfect word for it.
It's a drive that simply cannot be satisfied. The entire country functions as this massive high-stakes laboratory for the unorthodox.
And the mechanism behind that laboratory is crucial to understand. In many older cultures, when a system is broken or inefficient, the cultural instinct is to carefully preserve and repair it.
Right, to honor the tradition and fix the cracks.
Exactly. But the American cultural instinct is the exact opposite. Their instinct is to completely disrupt it.
Just tear it down.
Yes. Burn the old system to the ground, build a shiny new app to replace it, and figure out the consequences later.
Which yields these incomputable breakthroughs. I mean, the economic and cultural value of these innovations is literally off the charts.
Oh, completely.
We're talking about the twin engines of Silicon Valley for technology and Hollywood for global entertainment. The unorthodox idea isn't just something they tolerate, it is their primary global export.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this disrupt rather than repair ethos is the core software of the United States.
Core software, yeah?
And because they control so much of the global digital infrastructure, they're constantly exporting their own internal restlessness to the rest of the world.
That is deeply profound. Through, social media algorithms, streaming platforms, and blockbuster narratives, they're pushing this intangible influence across borders.
Yes, intangible but incredibly powerful.
You can't physically touch an algorithm, but it changes the brain chemistry of how the entire globe consumes media, buys products, and interacts with authority. The U.S. is basically iterating on modern culture in real time and forcing the rest of the world to download the update.
That's a brilliant way to phrase it, forcing the update.
Yeah.
Because that brings us to the final and perhaps most volatile contradiction in our sources.
Okay, what's that?
The global assumption is that America is this hyper-modern, unified digital monolith pushing these updates. But domestically, the disruption is not uniform at all.
Right.
In fact, the unrelenting pace of this technological change leaves vast segments of their own society completely unassimilated.
Right. The system updates aren't installing everywhere. Across that massive, unfathomable geography we started with, you have huge pockets of the population that are actively, stubbornly resisting the digital acceleration.
Absolutely.
You have traditional communities, rural towns, and working-class regions adhering to an uncompromising way of life. They are looking at the relentless speed of the coastal cities and saying, no, we refuse the download.
They remain almost entirely insusceptible to the modern digital frenzy.
Exactly.
Which is why judging the entire United States by the output of Silicon Valley or the political rhetoric of a single cable news network is a massive, indiscriminate error.
Yeah, it's a huge mistake.
You cannot draw sweeping conclusions about a country this fast. It is not a uniform melting pot where every culture and ideology blend smoothly into a single, cohesive national identity.
Oh, totally. That whole melting pot metaphor we all learned in school, based on these sources, it just feels completely obsolete.
Yeah, it really does.
It's more like a massive, imperfect quilt where the patches deliberately don't match, and some patches literally refuse to be sewn in. Or actually, if we use your software analogy,
yeah, let's hear it.
the culture isn't a melting pot. It's more like a massive, highly unstable operating system. The big coastal cities are the developers, right? Constantly pushing out these rapid, chaotic, buggy software updates.
New tech, new social norms, new industries.
Exactly. But the vast rural heartland acts like legacy hardware. It is deeply rooted, heavily armored, and it frequently rejects the new software because it threatens to crash their entire way of life.
That analogy gets right to the heart of the friction. The country is an indecipherable mosaic of cutting-edge software and stubborn legacy hardware.
Yeah, indecipherable is right.
And the true American experience, the actual day-to-day reality of the nation, lives entirely in the sparks and the heat generated by that incompatibility.
Right, and the friction.
It is a constant high-wire balancing act between the uncompromising ambition of the future-obsessed cities and the quiet, defensive resilience of the traditional heartland.
And observing how they manage that friction, or, how they spectacularly fail to manage it, provides invaluable lessons for anyone watching.
It really does.
Because you are watching the human cost of relentless progress play out in real time.
Precisely. And it's a stark reminder that this cultural operating system is by no means infallible.
Right, it crashes.
It is highly prone to crashing. It
Yeah.
makes massive, noisy errors. But the ongoing experiment of its evolution
Mhm.
is gripping. When you look at it through the lens of this advanced language, through the bounds of the in and un prefixes, you realize that pushing boundaries isn't just something they do, it is what they are.
It's their defining feature. You can't separate the ambition from the isolation or the friendliness from the transience. It's all part of the same complex machine.
It is. And before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Okay, lay it on us.
Specifically, building on that idea of the disruption engine. If the absolute defining characteristic of the American identity is this relentless, unquenchable drive to disrupt, reinvent, and tear down the old to build the new, does that mean their only true tradition is the state of permanent change? And if that's true, what happens to a culture when it finally reaches the edge of the map and simply runs out of things to disrupt?
Wow. What happens when the ultimate disruptors have nothing left to tear down?
That's going to stick with me for a long time.
It's a big question.
It really is. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We hope you enjoyed navigating the hidden mechanics of this culture as much as we did.
Thanks for listening.
The next time you look at a map of the United States or see a headline about its latest cultural friction, we hope you don't just see a flat, logical blueprint. We hope you see the overlapping scribbles, the brilliant innovations, the deep isolation, and the beautiful, insurmountable paradox that it really is. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.